it's hilarious because Roger Ebert goes on this big soapboxy spiel about how, you know, not only he felt Friday the 13th Part 4 was bad, but it's like the downfall of youth in our civilization and like all of these preposterous things towards, you know, slasher film. So I kind of wanted to take that and run with it and do these reviews of these exploitation movies, but as a very snobby film guy, someone who would judge these movies on merits that they should never be judged by. So I was, at the time, I was working a job that I was only there for a few hours out of the day, so I did have a lot of free time, so I made a few of these and posted them online, and they got some views and some compliments, so I just kept doing it. So I've been doing it for, about the past 3 years.
And I've noticed a little bit between your cinema snob and yourself, there doesn't seem to be much leeway. Especially with your review of Sorority Row.
Oh, God. I was kind of hamming it up a little bit. I mean, granted, as awful as Sorority Row is, at like the fourth kind. But I've noticed that because a lot of the videos, you know, I honestly haven't seen in a few years. I don't really go back and watch a lot of them, but I have noticed the progression of the character has seemed to, not necessarily that his taste in movies has turned into mine. That's not necessarily true because I like a lot of the movies I do on the Snob, but I've noticed that personality-wise, when he gets really, really angry, that sort of has more so, turned into me a little bit. Because I noticed like in the older episodes, the attitude of the character is just very really snobby and kind of talks low and sort of talks like this, you know, and now it's like F this movie, F that movie. Just a much angrier character now.
I've also noticed, too, you do another show, which has been, one of the movies featured on that show was done by, on the Cinema Snob was featured on that, which is the Bruno Makai show.
Oh, yeah. We actually just shot a new episode of that this weekend. I like doing that show. That shows it. That's a show. We started doing that, and you know, it didn't get a lot of hits. Not a lot of viewership for that particular show. It's just one we like doing for because we enjoy it, because we love doing it. And it gives me a break too, because it's a free-form conversation show, so I don't have to write a script for it.
I would have thought Radiodrome would have been a lot easier for you than the Bruno Matai show.
Radiodrome is in regards to like editing and posting and stuff like that. It is. Radiodrome is a lot easier because you know, I do edit the podcast down a little bit, but you know, I don't have to insert clips like the Bruno Matai show and different things I don't have to do for what I have to do for the other shows. But Radiodrome we always really seem to forget about because with all the other shows going on, Radiodrome is the one that, like, you know, a few months will go by and it'll be, oh man, we haven't done one of those. We haven't done one of those in a while. We should probably do that.
I also noticed too, Radiodrome and the Big Box seem to have about the same number of videos on there.
The Big Box, I think we did our 7th video. We usually do one of those like once or twice a month. We've got about 7 hours in Radiodrome. Well, Radiodrome we've done for a while longer. That existed over on a podcast site before I created the website. But even still, I think the episode of Radiodrome we did the other day was only the 5th episode, which if you think about it, technically it's only our fourth because episodes 2 and 3 were just one episode that were cut in half.
Now, how did you get the idea for the big box?
I wanted to do, when I was on YouTube, I wanted to do some other shows besides The Snob, but never really had the time. And then when, I made thecinemasnob.com, I, couldn't very well have the Cinema Snob be the only show on there. It wouldn't get updated. It'd only get updated about once a week. So I wanted a bunch more shows. So even when I was on YouTube, I wanted to do a show revolving around big box VHSs, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do because I love collecting big box VHS tapes. I think those are just great. And this was, when I came up with that, it was around the time when, like the ShamWow was getting really big on TV and Vince from ShamWow, so I kind of started doing a Vince voice a little bit. I thought it would be funny to make the big box series sort of like a really sleazy infomercial. So I kind of did the Vince voice a little bit and then just sort of tweaked it a little bit, which became the Vic voice. So yeah, that's about where that came from. I sort of just wanted to make sort of a little sleazy infomercial series, and I asked Jillian, my fiance, if she wanted to be the model, and yeah, she said definitely.
That is one of my favorite series, and actually a quick aside about one of the big boxes you did. You did one for Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yes, yeah.
My dad worked at the movie theater here in Macomb when it was shown originally.
Oh, really? Did
yeah.
He get all protested and stuff like that?
He got all the protesters, and so I asked him, I go, what did you do? He goes, I dressed up in a Santa suit, walked outside, and no more protesters.
That's awesome. They can't destroy their own kind.
So we also wanted to talk about a crossover you did with the big box and with the Cinema Snob.
Yeah, the Body Shop.
Because I actually own Dr. Gore on DVD.
Dude, yeah, so did I. I used to own that, the Something Weird DVD.
Yeah.
I used to own that too, and that's why I wanted that movie to be that crossover, because I had ordered about 5 or 6 big boxes off of eBay one day, and they all came and they all came together. I ordered them from the same person, but so I'm looking through them, and there's a few in there that I'd never seen before, like Mission Phantom and a couple other things, but I see the Body Shop on there right away, but I look at the back of it, notice the director, notice what it's about, and I see the pictures, and I'm, oh, man, I know what this is. Like, man, I used to own this. This movie's horrible. So I remember back when I had my DVD collection and I had Dr. Gore, that I was going to do that as a Snob episode, and I just never did. But when I got that big box, it's like, well, this is a perfect opportunity. I can get some kind of crossover in here because it's just a terrible movie.
I would agree with that, although Something Weird tends to release terrible movies, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Some of them are, what I like about Something Weird, though, is that even like the ones that are pretty unwatchable, and there are some of them that are pretty fun, but there's some that are kind of unwatchable. Even with that, I mean, they load these DVDs up with just the oddest of extra features that even when like a movie is just terrible, it sort of makes owning the DVD like worth whatever price was paid for it. I remember, I think it was on the Blood Feast DVD, which Blood Feast is a pretty fun movie. But part of what made that DVD so worth it was Something Weird was that carving, how-to that was on there with Harvey Korman teaching you how to carve a Thanksgiving Day turkey. Carving magic, that's what it was called. like this is the most bizarre extra features. And I used to have quite a bit of their DVDs. Now I think
I think I have Blood Feast, 2000 Maniacs, because a friend of mine's sister is actually in that. And Wizard of Gore, I think, is the other one I have. The original, not the Crispin Glover.
The Crispin Glover. Yeah. Yeah, I had to, like, when
You there?
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I used to have that Blood trilogy box set that was, Blood Feast, Color Me Blood Red. I liked that one a lot, and 2000 Maniacs. And had I used to have one on DVD that was the Zodiac Killer, an early 70s movie about the Zodiac Killer that was totally fictitious. It was like in this movie, the Zodiac Killer was he looked kind of like Simon Baker. He was just a crazy mailman who was a Satanist and just went around just killing random people. Have you ever seen this?
I don't think so.
Oh, check it out. It's pretty fun. It's like there are death sequences in there that are taken from the real case of the Zodiac Killer, but then it pads it out with, like, you know, the Zodiac Killer pushes an old man in a wheelchair down a flight of stairs.
Wow. And the one of the other things, too, is that I thought 2000 Maniacs was better when it was redone as 2001 Maniacs with Robert Englund.
I've never seen that. I've never gotten around to seeing that. I've been meaning to check it out for you know, however long it's a few years on DVD. But I never got around to it. I did see Blood Feast 2, which I actually liked better than the first one. Blood Feast 2 was a lot of fun. They kind of did it. Herschel Gordon Lewis kind of did it as a silly kind of trauma-esque comedy, and it worked. It was pretty funny.
That actually wasn't the original sequel to it. Originally in the 80s, they had Blood Diner, which actually I got for free on demand.
Right. I forgot. I always forget about Blood Diner. Yeah, I remember Blood Diner.
And I was watching it going, this is the funniest yet weirdest thing I think I've ever seen on demand.
Yeah. That was great, yeah, because I've got on demand too, and be flipping through there, and all of a sudden come across like Gretel and Ray's Star Slammer.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, guess I could watch Alienator today.
And there's now I've heard your latest Radiodrome.
Oh yeah.
And I had two questions involved in that. First one being, are you doing better?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, thankfully, that chili. Yeah. I'm not entirely sure eating that chili and getting my name up on the wall was entirely worth it.
And while we're on the subject of restaurants, I'll get to my other question here in a second.
Mm-hmm.
My family and I are going down to Springfield. My wife actually wanted to take me to the chili place.
To Joe Rogers?
I go, under no circumstances am I going there, so we have decided on the Smokehouse Diner, or Smoky Bones.
Oh, Smoky Bones?
Yeah.
Oh, right on. I've never been there. I've heard good things, but I haven't been to that restaurant yet.
Because I remember there was a barbecue, like a Famous Dave's or something, there at one point.
In that particular, yeah, I think you're right. I am off in that general area pretty often because there's a movie theater like right by that block of restaurants there. So yeah, I'm over in that area quite a bit. I remember that. Yeah, there used to be some other kind of restaurant like that was in that spot.
And going back to the question now, I'm sorry I got off.
Oh, no problem.
The other question, and this is what Revolving Radiodrome, do you think Nightmare on Elm Street is probably a horror movie you're looking forward to seeing the remake?
Am I looking forward to seeing the remake?
Yeah.
I am. I love Jackie Earle, so at the least, I think I think Jackie Earle will be awesome in it, and I'm glad that it's going back to being darker, like the first two movies, darker and creepier and a little more nightmarish looking. With that said, I don't know if it'll be any good, but, at least, it's not like Freddy's dead and, I forgot the power glove,
right?
And, stuff like that. So I hope it's good. I hope I go see it and it turns out to be good, but, I'm not going in there with incredibly high expectations, but I hope it turns out to be pretty good.
After seeing the trailer, I only had one thing that came to mind, which was, it is Rorschach Kruger.
I know, right? I like that. I was one of those that was just, I was furious when they said Robert Englund wasn't going to play Freddy Krueger. I'm like, that just does not seem right for so many reasons. I was angry when it wasn't when they, ditched Kane Hodder as Jason in Freddy versus Jason. But then when they cast Jackie Earle Haley, I kind of stepped back a little and was like, well, okay, Jackie Earle Haley, I love Jackie Earle Haley. Jackie Earle Haley can probably do a pretty good job here.
Right.
Honestly, I think if it was anyone else but Jackie Earle Haley, I probably still would be pretty angry. And
in a bit of movie news that comes to my mind as why, and I'm sure yourself, the Cinema Snob, and any of your other characters would agree, they are remaking Child's Play.
Yeah, I saw that a while back, and it's odd because it's being done by the same guy.
It's being done by the same guy, and Chucky's the same guy, too.
Yeah, Brad Dourif and, what's his name, Don Mancini, I think is his name. Don Mancini going back and doing Child's Play. Again, and it's like they're taking it back to being really dark like the first one, and not really a comedy like the later movies. And, with that, it's sort of like, well, it has to be a sequel. I mean, it doesn't have to be a remake. You could just make another follow-up that's really dark.
Right.
But yeah, I'll go see it. I'll go see it when it comes out.
I'll probably see that one too, and I'm probably going to go see Bruce versus Frankenstein.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one too. Yeah, that'll be fun.
I'm in a film class here at the college I'm at, which is Western Illinois University, which isn't too far from you.
Well, yeah.
And
Macomb, right?
Yep.
Right on.
And where the film class, my teacher goes, if you have a bunch of zombie movies in your Netflix queue, this is not the class for you. And I raise my hand. He goes, except for you.
There you go. Nice.
Because I've been watching, Astro Zombies is on Netflix now, on streaming for some reason.
Did you hear about Ted V. Michaels getting kind of angry on his Facebook page about that video?
No, I didn't.
I heard about this. I went over there and saw it, and it was about 3 paragraphs of him just like someone needs to teach this guy a lesson or something like that. It was I can't remember all what he said, but it was written to where it was pretty obvious he thought I was playing myself, that that was actually just me on camera, giving a legitimate review. And he's like, these movies aren't meant to be reviewed by snobs and stuff like that. So I did write to him and say this is a fictitious character, and this is meant to be taken seriously.
And I guess that's not the first time you've had something like that happen, because I think you said Troma was pretty offended when you did Mother's Day.
I heard this is the first time I've heard directly from the director themselves that they were really angry. The times before, I've gotten feedback from directors before, but every time before, it's been genuinely pretty positive. Like, they got the joke. Like, they knew that was a character on there, and that it's, you know, sort of making fun of very pretentious snobs. But I do remember when I had my YouTube account, and I did hear that Troma filed a complaint, a YouTube complaint about the Mother's Day video. Nothing ever came of that, but I did notice that they particularly weren't huge fans of the Mother's Day video, and then of course the nail gun massacre video, which got me kicked off YouTube for a time. I was never too sure where that came from. I wasn't sure if it was the DVD company that complained, or if it was the director. I wasn't sure. I know that before that complaint was registered by whoever, I actually heard from some cast members of the movie who thought it was really funny, who enjoyed it. But yeah, I was either the director or the DVD company. One of them wasn't too happy that I was making fun of Nail Gun Massacre.
With a name like that, though, I think it kind of deserves to be
exactly.
mocked.
It's like even out of character. I mean, I'll say that there are movies on that series, on the Snub series, that I like, that I've seen more than once, that I've watched, since doing a video on them. But even as myself here, I'll say Nail Gun Massacre is probably the worst slasher film from the 1980s.
I think there might be one that I think it was from the 80s, which was Death Nurse and Death Nurse 2, because I watched those
Oh, yeah.
back to back, and I sat there and it's only like a 60-minute film, I think. By like the half-hour point, I'm sitting there going, shoot me, please.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I tend to, whenever I'm thinking of the worst of something, I tend to forget about the shot-on-video movies. But, yeah, the Death Nurses were 1988, I think.
Wow.
1988, and they're just dreadful. Just borderline unwatchable.
I don't think there was many original shots, except for the guy making ice cream.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Guy making ice cream, and then the second one, she's fixing tea for a half an hour.
Right.
And still using all that stock footage from Criminally Insane. And I liked Criminally Insane. I thought Criminally Insane was pretty entertaining. But this one, oh, man. Even Crazy Fat Ethel 2 was horrible.
I've also noticed, too, you tend to talk about two video companies the most when you do Radiodrome or The Snob. Something Weird being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is, I'm going to forget it, The Asylum.
The Asylum. I love The Asylum. That company, they got a lot of heart in their movies. They love the heck out of what they do. I've seen some Asylum movies that aren't very good, like Monster and like Transmorphers that are kind of boring, if anything else. But when they get some pretty entertaining ones in there, it's a delight when they just kind of run with it and have some fun. Like Paranormal Entity, I liked a lot. Snakes on a Train was kind of fun. Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus was.
Which they're making
They're making another one.
They're making another one.
Nice. Yeah, that one was entertaining. And I actually got an email back from Asylum confirming that they are doing Titanic 2.
Is it going to be subtitled Sinking Boogaloo?
Oh, I don't know. That'd be great. Yeah, I have no idea. I've only seen that little, like, cover art that's been circulating the blogs. It's like that modern-day cruise ship in, like, the middle of a storm. I can't wait for that. That's going to be great. And they got one coming out called, Mega Piranha. They got Mega Piranha coming out.
Which, that's going to be a take on Piranha 3D, is it not?
I believe so. I assume, anyway. I assume it's going to be coming out around the time as Piranha 3D.
Which leads me to my next question, which is, what is your take, being a horror fan like I am, on everything going to 3D anymore?
I think it's ridiculous that everything's going to 3D. Like, I like watching, like, gimmicky 3D stuff, like it was delightful going to see, like, My Bloody Valentine 3D. They're throwing pickaxes at the screen, guys' jaws flying at the camera. Really, like, gimmicky 3D stuff like that. Like in like horror movies and goofy comedies and whatnot. It's pretty fun. Like I like the whole 3D craze in the early '80s with Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. That stuff I like seeing. That stuff is it can be fun seeing in 3D. With that said, that doesn't mean I want to see every horror film in 3D, and that certainly doesn't mean that I want to go see something like Spider-Man in 3D or Clash of the Titans or Transformers 3. That certainly doesn't mean I want to see every movie under the sun in 3D. In fact, if they ever make the next Spider-Man movie and it's in 3D, I'm not going to go see that thing in 3D. I don't care. Show me Amityville 3D. Show me Piranha 3D. Whatever. Yeah, that's pretty much my take on it. And as much as I did like Avatar, and as much as I liked it, I wished that movie had bombed, so that not every movie that's made hereafter is going to be in 3D.
There are a couple of them that I think are going to be interesting to be in 3D.
Yeah.
For instance, actually, the Final Destination. I know this is going to sound stupid. I have the whole series, and I don't necessarily like them. But,
sure, yeah.
But the Final Destination, the one thing that I bought it on DVD for was the Nightmare on Elm Street trailer before anybody else had it.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the 3D actually works if you're watching it at home.
For Final Destination?
Yeah, for the Final Destination, if you have an HD TV and the Blu-ray of it, the 3D effect works a lot better at home than it did in the theater.
Oh, really? I didn't see it in the theater. I haven't seen it. Yeah, the Final Destination I've never seen. And I actually only recently saw the second one and third one. Like, well, these are the same exact movie.
Yeah, they are.
Oh my God, the curse! It's looping itself. Yeah, I know. I figured that out 2 movies ago.
And also, the other one I'm looking forward to is Sleepaway Camp Reunion in 3D.
Really? This is the first I've heard of this.
Yep.
They're doing another Sleepaway Camp?
They're doing another Sleepaway Camp. And
that's awesome. They have Robert Hiltzik.
Yep.
They have him back doing it?
Has him back doing it, and Felicia Rose has signed on. Now, the only thing holding it back is Drake Bell has signed on as well. Drake
Bell.
Drake and Josh on Nickelodeon.
Oh!
Or Superhero Movie, he was the main.
Oh man. Well, I guess he can't be any worse than the kid, that stupid kid from Return to Sleepaway Camp.
That's true. I will say, with all the movie series I have, I actually have the Sleepaway Camp box set.
Nice.
That Best Buy sold for like a limited time only.
I used to have that too. I used to have the hang on. I'm sorry, my cat almost got shut in the door. Yeah, I had that for Best Buy too. I had the one that they ended up recalling. That had the one that had the red cross on it.
Yes.
That they ended up recalling because I guess the Red Cross wasn't too terribly pleased about that. So they replaced it with like a bloody handprint or something like that.
Something like that. And switching gears a little bit, my wife actually wanted to know this. So, you are a cat person, she wants to know.
Yes, I got my Siamese cat, Lloyd. He's my. I got two Siamese actually. Lloyd's my main Siamese who you always hear in the background of the videos and who pops up every now and then. And Chloe, she's my little Siamese. She kind of just tends to herself and she isn't very vocal. The black and white cat is Jillian's.
Okay.
That's Jillian's cat. And but yeah, like I'll sit down and do like an ad-libbed review or something like that for something I've seen in the theater, and I'll think that Lloyd's like in the other room sleeping or doing something. Then I'll get halfway through the video and up comes Lloyd on camera and meowing in the background, and I try to play along with it because at that point it's like, man, I don't have to stop this and start this over again. So I usually try to play along with it when he comes on camera. There have been times where if you've ever noticed an edit in the ad-lib reviews, there have been times when he'll start fighting with another cat, or he'll get a little too vocal, and I'll have to pause the camera and go off and like put him in the bedroom or something.
I think when in your review of, I think it might have been the Crazies, he came up and just started sniffing the camera, and you just picked him up and moved it.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he walked up there and was standing right in front of the camera. He looked like he was about 11 feet tall.
And now, you did not get to share this on your site, so I wondered if you would like to share it with us. What was your take on Twilight New Moon?
It's exactly what I thought it was going to be. I just went to it, knowing what it was going to be, knowing how it was going to turn out. Sure, it's terrible. It's poorly acted. The effects are atrocious. The characters are nothing. And what it does to vampires is just crazy. But it was what I thought it was going to be, so it's not like, when I came out of the theater, I was angry, because, it certainly wasn't like I was disappointed. It met my expectations, so to speak, but so yeah, I honestly, like, watching that one, I was thinking more towards what I could do as a video for that than I actually was sitting there really watching the stupid thing.
Right.
So yeah, when we came home from seeing that is, when Jillian and I shot that video for it. And Jillian, she actually is as spoofy as that review was, with me just sitting there not really listening to Rick Astley and her reviewing the movie. As spoofy as that review was, she actually is a really big fan of those movies.
Right, and it's kind of like my wife loves Harry Potter.
Jillian's a huge Harry Potter fan.
And that stuff, so what I do is she goes, I'm going to see Harry Potter. I go, okay, I'm seeing The Hangover.
Right, exactly, yeah. Hangover's awesome.
Also, I was wanting to get your thoughts because it came out in the review kind of odd, and I'll tell you why here in a second, but Saw 6, you said had a political agenda, but you couldn't review it because you go, it's 6, you're either going to see it or you're not. Which is true. And
yeah.
The reason I ask is because the writer actually grew up from Macomb and was one of my friends.
Really?
Yep, Marcus Dunstan. His mom was my principal in high school.
That's a review I probably should have said a little bit more on, but I remember being kind of tired when I did that particular one, so yeah, it sort of was like, yeah, you're either going to see this movie or you're not. Saw 6, I honestly thought, which I can't remember if I said this in the review or not, but I honestly thought was an improvement over the last couple, because I don't mind the Saw movies. I mean, they're all right. I mean, I've seen worse. I will watch the worst Saw movie before I'll watch any of the Hostel movies any day of the week. Saw 6 I thought was one of the better of the sequels, but in the review I was sort of like, yeah, you're either going to see this or you're not, and if you do go see it, you won't have a horrible time.
Right. I go to see the Saws when they first come out.
Me too. And
when it first comes, the next one that's coming out is Saw 7 in 3D, and it is the final Saw film.
Yeah, that's a 3D one I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to seeing Saw 7 in 3D. It's like they cannot contain Justice Mandalore on the screen anymore.
Well, did you hear about the problem they went through?
No, I don't think so.
They hired the guy who did Saw 5.
Yeah.
And then they turned around and fired him and rehired the guy who did 6, which, honestly, probably a good move.
Sure, yeah.
Saw 6 made the least amount of money, but I thought it had the best story other than the original Saw, to be honest.
Yeah, Saw 6 and Saw 3 I thought were pretty solid as far as the sequels go. 4 was entertaining, but it's the one that made the least sense out of all of them. Like, right. What, he's really doing all this in 80 minutes? Are you kidding me? I like that they got the guy for Saw 6 back for the next one, and not say the one who did Saw 5.
Right. And another take I was wanting to get from you was, there's 2 horror films that are very, very similar. I don't know if you've seen the first one, because it's maybe actually too obscure for even you, surprisingly, which is Repo, the Genetic Opera.
Oh, I hated that movie.
Oh, you hated that?
I hated Repo, the Genetic Opera. Yeah, I tried watching it, and actually, of all the bad movies that I've sat through, and I've sat through the whole movies, I actually quit watching Repo the musical. Wow. And I'll tell you why. It's because, like, the plot I loved. I thought the story behind it was genius. I couldn't stand the music in it. I hated it. Have these people even heard of a hook?
Right.
But it just kept droning on and on with the singing, and I don't mind musicals. I like musicals, all right, but this was just unbearable. It was me and Brian and Sarah from the Bruno Makai show. We're sitting there trying to watch this. We get about a half an hour into it, and we're like, there's Bruno Makai Mondo movies we could be watching right now.
And then I would like to get your take on Repo Man, which seems to be like the exact same thing, minus the music.
See, exactly, and that's why I want to see that one. That's why I want to see that movie, because it's what I liked about Repo the musical, without everything I hated.
Right, and some of the other reviews you've done on your site are movies that have come out recently, like The Wolfman, which you were late on. I had already seen it, and then, after you put it up, that guy with the glasses.com, which you are affiliated with, everybody did a review on it. It seemed like, because James from the Massacre did it, and he sits there and he said the same thing that I thought. He goes, "I'd like to tell you it was okay. I'd like to tell you what I hate. I'd like to tell you what I love. I can't. It's okay."
Yeah, that was it. I mean, I saw it. That was one I had just kind of, as the week went on, I just kind of forgot about. I went to go see it in the theater. I saw it opening weekend, maybe Saturday or Sunday or whenever. But And a few days went by, and I was like, oh man, I've forgotten to review the Wolfman. So I popped up a thing on the website, and yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, with James Rolfe and those and the others who reviewed it over on That Guy with the Glasses, that it was okay, but I mean, it was exactly. I mean, it did nothing new. It was exactly what you'd think an okay Wolfman movie would be like.
Right, and the only thing that I could say after I saw it was, at least it's not like Memoirs of an Invisible Man.
Yeah, that's true.
Or An American Werewolf in Paris, which was really bad.
I hated that movie. That movie was terrible. And Werewolf in London is probably my favorite werewolf movie. I'm a huge Werewolf in London fan, and I remember when Werewolf in Paris came out, and just hating that. And I haven't seen it since, and that movie came out in the late '90s, and I haven't seen it since then.
Now, one of the other things too is you made a comment when you were reviewing, I think, Sorority Row, how you hated. I do believe you said hated the Scream series and that '90s slasher make fun of yourself thing.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of late '90s horror. And Kevin Williamson in general, I can't stand. All of his movies were just Dawson's Creek, but with a masked killer. I hate it. As far as the Scream series go, I didn't like them. I didn't necessarily hate them. Like, I was probably yelling about them in that review because I was yelling about everything else. But I just didn't like them. They're trying to be too cute and full of themselves and too self-aware of what they were doing, and I thought that movie was just smarmy as hell.
I was going to say, when I saw Scream 3, it reminded me of Wes Craven's new Scream.
Wes Craven's New Nightmare?
Yeah, it reminded me Scream 3 when they were at the movie studio and.
Yeah, you're right. I remember that because I've seen all three of the Scream movies, and yeah, I remember that with them doing that and being like, yeah, I should be home right now just watching New Nightmare.
Yeah, which was the better movie, I think.
It was. I like New Nightmare. New Nightmare was fun.
And speaking of remakes of Wes Craven, since he's doing a Scream 4, and I think the subtitle is This Time It's Personal.
Great.
There was a remake. He's signed off for, I think, 3 remakes. Two of them have already been done. Nightmare's the third one. Last House on the Left, I think. Did you get a chance to see that at all, the remake?
I did. I liked it. I liked that one a lot. I thought that was actually one of the better remakes. Because as much of a cult classic as the original one is, and I like the original, but my God, is it a flawed movie? So I was not. Well, I wasn't opposed to there being a remake of it. One, because of that, and also because, well, I mean, the original is also a remake of like The Virgin Spring or something.
Oh, that's
like
true.
that.
It is.
So yeah, I didn't care that it was that they were remaking Last House on the Left, and I thought that, I mean, granted, it didn't have that really gritty, that as far as the film stock, that gritty touch to it. I'm talking more so about the film stock of the movie. That I love about the original Last House on the Left is that just the film quality of the thing just looks, gritty and grimy and dingy and it completely works for that kind of movie. So that aspect I kind of missed, but at the same time, I mean, I thought the remake was a fantastic revenge movie. Like, I loved Tony Goldwyn. I thought he was great. I thought Garrett Dillahunt was awesome. I thought he did a great job as Krug, and I was just honestly, I was just happy they cut out the whole bumbling cop subplot.
Well, you know why it was so good, don't you?
Why's that?
Platinum Dunes was not involved.
Right, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And same with The Crazies. The Crazies was a good remake. And that had nothing. Yeah, and Platinum Dunes, to my knowledge, wasn't involved with that at all.
And Daybreakers was another one you've reviewed that I got a chance to see. And
what'd you think?
I loved it, but that bat, man, that kept freaking the crap out of me. Every time the bat flew up, I'm like, why?
Dude, it was doing that to me, too. When I go see it, every time that bat was on screen, I'm like, oh, jeez.
And I was sitting there going, okay, is this film going to be too scary for me? Because I can take horror, but I like the campy horror stuff a little more.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, okay. And every time I walked back in, another bat, I'm like, good grief.
Oh, jeez. Oh, my gosh.
But the latest movie I actually got done seeing was Cop Out, which, not a horror film.
I've heard, how was it? I've heard really horrible things about that.
It depending upon how your viewpoint is. If you like Bruce Willis, I'd say check it out because it's pretty funny.
Right,
but,
I do love Bruce Willis.
But if Tracy Morgan can get too much too quick,
yeah, you're telling me.
I'd say rent it.
I'll rent it. I'll certainly see it. I'm just probably not going to pay to go see it in the theater because. Yeah, I mean, you're right about Tracy Morgan. I mean, he's kind of the Chris Tucker of this decade.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite as annoying as Chris Tucker, but still pretty annoying.
And also, when we were talking about the big box,
yeah,
you do VHS reviews. However, I found a big box that is DVD, and it's a box set, but it's not. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I get what you mean. What's the DVD for it?
Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Oh yeah. I've come across that in the stores. Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
I'm looking at that, going, that reminds me of a VHS box, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that. I love that. Like House of the Devil put out a special clamshell VHS of their movie. I hope more movies of that kind start doing that because I still love VHS. I still buy a lot of VHS tapes.
And also along that lines with Silent Night, Deadly Night, I think it was 2 or 3, had one of my favorite actors in it, and I wanted to get your take on this because I know you're a fan of horror films.
Mm-hmm.
Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 had Bill Moseley, who was in.
Oh, that was the third one.
Oh, that was the third one?
Yeah, where he's got that big brain hat thing on his
head.
Yeah.
That was the third one, so.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my question to you is, what did you think of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2?
Oh, that movie's fun. Chop Top?
Yep.
Yeah, Chop Top. That was a movie that grew on me when I was younger. The first time I saw it was shortly after I saw the first one, so I would have been like in junior high. So sometime in junior high, I saw these movies. Saw the first one, thought it was scary as hell, which I still do. That movie's disturbing as hell.
Oh, it is.
And then I saw the second one, and was like, "Well, this is silly. Will they run around with chainsaw stickers? Were they living in a Christmas cave all of a sudden? What is this?" So the first time I saw it, being, I don't know, 12 years old, however old I was, in junior high, not caring too much for it, but saw it again, and yeah, now it's fantastic. Yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, it's fun. Finds Franklin's skeleton there, and he's still holding the flashlight.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, they released a special edition of it, which surprised me.
Yeah.
They released it, and there was a special feature on there that had deleted scenes.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, Joe Bob Briggs, comes out of the movie going, "Oh, that's the worst movie I've ever seen," and he gets chopped up by Leatherface.
I like that. That's good.
But I found that because I have a bunch of horror films at my house. Jeez, I have.
Mm-hmm.
Even the new Halloweens, even.
Yeah, I've got like the 2.5 hour cut of the first Rob Zombie Halloween.
And then I also have the Halloween 2 because honestly, I agree with you. It's Malcolm McDowell, right?
Right. Yes. He's he sold that movie. I mean, that and the soundtrack too. I love the soundtrack to that movie. Michael Myers in a strip club killing a bunch of people and playing Ooh Ooh Jackie Blue. Like that's pretty good. Yeah, I'm one of the few. I think I'm one of the few when that movie came out. I gave it a positive review. I mean, and I went to go see it with my buddy Brian I went to go see it with Brian and Sarah from Bruno Makai, and Brian really didn't like it, and I'm like, you know what? Like seriously, he's like, think back to how awful like H2O was, and like Resurrection and whatnot. This one's not bad. I'd rather have this movie again than, you know, Michael Myers versus Buster Rhymes and Tyra Banks.
Well, that's true. And then there's also another series that seems to be going on forever.
Mm-hmm.
Which the first two I liked, which was the Hellraiser series. They're making another one.
I've heard about this, and it's a remake, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I heard. I've seen. I saw, of course, like the first four. I saw the first four, and yeah, the Hellraiser movies are great. The ones I saw. But I saw one that was direct to video, and I can't remember the subtitle was, but it had Ashley Lawrence back in it again, and it was like her husband in the movie was sort of the main character in this one, and she was in it too, and it was a very Jacob's Ladder kind of movie, and I don't remember what the subtitle of it was, but I remembered liking it. Surprisingly, like I remember it surprised me. It was like, wow. It was the first of the Hellraiser direct-to-video ones. The only one I had seen, and was like, this is surprisingly really not bad. I certainly like it better than the fourth one.
A lot of the movies that I've seen are, as I said, I saw it at my video store or on demand.
Uh-huh.
And on demand right now, if you have Comcast or whatever, and they have FearNet, they have Leprechaun in the Hood.
Do they really? Nice.
Yeah. They have Leprechaun in the Hood and a whole bunch of like these Leprechaun films, which, I'll be honest, the first one I liked.
Oh, yeah, the first one's fun. Yeah.
Then they shot him into space, sent him like to the Hood, and then there's a sequel called Leprechaun Back to the Hood.
Back to the Hood, the number 2.
Yep. And I'm going, okay, now they're just getting silly. But then I'm like, but wait, it is silly to think there's a leprechaun out there. I go, to me it's about as scary as The Puppet Master, which, honestly, the first Puppet Master is probably the scariest horror film I think I've seen.
Yeah, the first one was creepy. I never saw a leprechaun in space, which surprises me because I've seen about all the other, franchise horror movies that put themselves into space, like, Critters in space, and of course Jason X, got Uber Jason up there in space, which I thought Jason X was a lot of fun. I had fun with that one.
I did too, although, and I think that's also Roman numeral for 10, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, it was called Jason X, and the whole time I'm going, isn't that Friday the 13th Part 10? And my dad's like, yeah? Whoa, okay. I, however, did not like the Jason Goes to Hell from that franchise.
I did like Jason Goes to Hell. I thought Jason Goes to Hell was cool. I loved the main guy in it, John LeMay, I think was his name. I thought he was great. I thought that he was just like a real geeky-looking guy. I loved how he seemed to be a character who normally in any other of the movies probably would have been just like the comic relief maybe, or just would have been killed off, like, like Shelley in the third one. I liked how he was like the hero of that movie, and I loved how Jason looked in it, like how he was still kind of all acidy looking from the end of Jason Takes Manhattan when he gets dumped with like toxic waste. And I liked that it tried doing something different, Plus, Stephen Williams is Creighton Duke. See,
right.
I thought that was awesome. I'm one of the few likes Jason Goes to Hell.
And Kane Hodder was in it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked how. Yeah, I again. Yeah, I loved how. I liked how Jason looked in it.
And quickly switching series. I don't remember what it was. I've seen this cover. I've seen part of the movie and shut it off because it was way, way too bad. It was a guy who was a dead zombie with a drill at the end of his guitar. I
know exactly what you're talking about. That's Slumber Party Massacre 2.
2, okay.
Yeah, Slumber Party Massacre 2. That's actually a ripoff of Nightmare on Elm Street. And it's got Crystal Bernard from Wings in it. Yeah, that was the bad one. That one was, and the first Slumber Party Massacre was all right, but yeah, the second, that was pretty awful. Where he's got the drill guitar and he's trying to kill her in her dreams, and
then shortly after that, I came across a movie that said it was starred Gene Simmons and Ozzy Osbourne.
Trick or Treat.
And it was Trick or Treat, and I'm sitting there going, no, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's starring Skippy from Family
Ties, yeah. And it was, to me, it wasn't a bad film. It wasn't a good film by any stretch of the imagination.
It could. You are right. It could have been worse. It was pretty silly. But yeah, it certainly could have been worse.
But there's been, as I said, a lot of these bad horror films, and sometimes I feel sorry for you having to sit there and watch them. Like, what was it? No, it wasn't Leprechaun 2. Troll 2.
Troll 2 is funny. Yeah, I kind of like that one. All right. You know what? I love. I'd rather watch Troll 2 like any day over the first Troll movie. Because whereas like, sure, the second one's a worse movie than the first one, but the first one to me is just bad. Like it's just stupid. And I honestly couldn't stand the first Troll movie. The second one is bad, but it's so fun about being bad. And anymore, like it used to be when I was writing this show that it would be a little painful sitting through some of the movies.
Oh, yeah.
But nowadays, I mean, it's even when it's something that I do genuinely dislike. I'm sitting there with like a notepad and a pencil, and I'm watching it basically just kind of looking for jokes.
Right.
Looking for jokes and taking some notes and whatnot. So that helps in sitting through the movie, because I mean, it's not like I'm sitting there just. Yeah, if I was sitting there just plain watching the movie, be it E.T. the porno or whatever, it'd be a little more painful.
Well, how else would you get through Nudist Colony of the Dead, where they are not nude?
Yeah, exactly. Nudist Colony, but it's a lie. But and I like it better now that I'm on my own site and through BlitzyMe, because there's not a time constraint for the videos, so that way I can sit there taking notes and stuff like that. Whereas my YouTube days, I basically just watched the movie and then went and wrote the video. I wasn't really taking that many notes because I couldn't overwrite the video. If I overwrote it, I'd have to cut out a bunch of stuff, and that would be it looked terrible. So yeah, back in note. But yeah, I like it better now that I could sit there and actually take notes and make the videos a little longer.
Right. And really quickly, I have two last movies to get to before I let you go. The first one I caught on, it was either Monster Vision or it was Up All Night on USA.
Nice, with Rhonda Shear.
And it was called Beverly Hills Vamp.
Oh, yeah, I think that's got, doesn't that have Eddie Deason in it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I love Eddie Deason.
And I was sitting there watching it going, is this an exploitation film? Is this a vampire film?
It's Deason-ploitation.
And the funny thing is it has yet to be released on DVD.
You're right, because, the only time I saw it was back in the day when I rented it on VHS. That was one that about every video store here in town had.
And then the other one, which ironically stars Eddie Deason, was Bimbo Movie Bash.
That's an Eddie. I've seen a lot of Eddie Deason movies because I love Eddie Deason. Like, if you haven't seen a movie called Surf 2, check it out. I mean,
Surf 2, the end of a trilogy.
Yes, Surf 2. Yes, yep. Exactly, with Eric Stoltz and Surf 2 is probably my favorite Eddie Deason movie. I love that movie. That one that you just said, I've heard of it, but it's one of the few Eddie Deason movies I haven't seen.
Oh, if you watch it, be prepared. It is. Let's put it this way: it makes Death Nurse look like a good idea.
Oh no! Well, now I got to see it to stay in my curiosity.
It was one of those that was just so bad that I'm sitting there going, if I wanted to watch a movie like this, I'd rather get the Bear Winch Project.
Oh yeah, with Lunk Johnson.
Yep. And one other thing too, and this I meant to say at the beginning, was the Cinema Snob reminds me a lot of the Nostalgia Critic, only for horror.
The first time I ever came across the Nostalgia Critic was when he and James Rolfe did their fight, which I thought was hysterical. I'd never heard of them before then. Both of us came out debuted on YouTube around the same time, and it's funny because I watch the Nostalgia Critic. It's a great show. I mean, his comedic timing is fantastic. But honestly, yeah, a lot of the movies he watches are ones that even I wouldn't even touch with a 10-foot pole, like Steel and Blank Check. Oh man!
Or Battlefield Earth.
Battlefield Earth, I thought was kind of funny, but that as horrible as it was. At least it was kind of hilarious in a showgirls kind of way. But man, I mean, I watch stuff really often like Savage Vengeance and Porno Holocaust. I mean, stuff like that is atrocious. But I mean, oh man, I'd rather watch any of those than Steel any day of the week.
I agree.